but I wanted to go over a few things with you today about what it will look like eventually here in the U.S. That way we can compare all of the things that we've been talking about for a long time and see if it's actually factual in a country that is experiencing not what I like to call hyperinflation, but superinflation, right? And I guess there's no real definition to what superinflation is, but I would call it something that's less than hyperinflation, but constant. So hyperinflation, the definition of hyperinflation is when inflation is at a rate of 50% or higher month after month. So if we have 50% inflation month after month, that is considered hyperinflation. I like to say that superinflation is anything that's less than that. What we're going to do is we're going to dissect one of those articles today, because one of the articles that I put up, I think it was today, either today or yesterday, was about the inflationary crisis that Argentinians have been living through for the last more than a decade now. I think they've had like 3 collapses in the last like 20 or 30 years, right? But they've been living through a hyperinflationary economy here for like the last, I don't know how long now. It's been more than 10 years. But that article outlines kind of like what their daily lives is like, and kind of like how the hyperinflation in that country has kind of like changed their culture. And a lot of the things that they cover in that article are things that we've actually talked about here. Things that we've actually talked about that could and would happen during high inflationary events that I want to go over. That way you can see that there is validity to not what only I talk about, but what a lot of other prepper channels talk about when it comes to making sure that you stock up now, ladies and gentlemen. Part of this article talks about how their culture changed. Their culture has changed in Argentina ever since they started going through the hyperinflationary crisis that they've been pretty much living through for the last, I don't know how long, more than a decade. All right. So now it's kind of like part of their lives. It's kind of like engraved in their DNA that they act in the manner that I'm going to discuss with you here today. All right. So one of the things that they say is that when you see something that's on sale, you buy it. You buy it. You don't care what it is. As long as you know that it's going to last on the shelf, and that you're going to be able to use it, you buy it. So here they say, if you see toothpaste, buy enough toothpaste for an entire year. And when I read this, and you see me smile, it's not because I'm glad that Argentina is going through what they're going through, but because it's what we talk about all the time. It's what people that are not in the know, people that are still asleep, call us hoarders for. The same thing that they're doing in countries that is experiencing what I think and many other people think we are going to be experiencing here. So this is a great way to learn from what someone else is going through. It says here, store as many cans as your cupboard will hold. And they also say, keep your freezer crammed with meat. Ladies and gentlemen, this is stuff we've been talking about for years. And this is coming from a country that's going through what we here in the U.S. will be going through. When? Not exactly sure, but I think you can feel it in the air, ladies and gentlemen. They say that buying staples in bulk can feel like saving money. And isn't that just a fact? Or better than saving money? Because saving money means it just sits there while its value falls away. Incredible, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, these things are like almost verbatim what we've been talking about as a community here, not just here in the Alaska Prepper channel, but in the prepper community as a whole here on YouTube for years. It says here that this lady was talking about filling her gas tank with gasoline. She said that every time that she fills her gas tank with gasoline, she feels like she's making an investment, because she knows that the next time that she goes to fill her gas tank, that is going to be more than what it was that last time that she filled it. And then they go on to say one major tactic here is stockpiling to the extent that they can. And this lady here says that she stockpiled so much that she eventually ran out of room, all right, because there was no more space. But that was a good problem to have. Non-perishable goods are popular. Toilet paper, baby wipes, soap, shampoo, toothpaste if you're going to use it within a year or two, right? I know that eventually toothpaste can go bad, but it takes quite a while, all right? He says here he may have 8 to 10 or 8 toothpaste tubs at any one time, and he gets enough shampoo to last at least a year and a half. So ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question now. Knowing what Argentinians are going through as far as the inflation crisis that they've been living through for years, do you think that these people sound like hoarders? They don't. I mean, to a person that is not awake, they probably would sound like hoarders. But to someone that's living through what they're living through, or to someone that understands what they're living through, because someone knows that if you put $1 in the bank today, that dollar next year at the same time is probably only going to buy you 90 cents worth of the same stuff it could buy you a year ago. All right. So they are not hoarders. They are doing what they need to do to survive in order to preserve what? To preserve their purchasing power, because they're buying their things ahead of time, knowing that at that same time, in their case, next week is going to be more expensive than it was the week prior when they bought it. They say that taking out loans can also be helpful, but they're saying that the interest rate that is provided at the banks is less than what the rate of inflation is. So they would rather take out a loan in order to get something now and pay it back later with money that is less valuable. They even go so far as saying that they even borrow money to buy peanut butter. This gentleman borrowed $3 American to buy a tub of peanut butter, and he paid back the $3 American in monthly installments of 25 cents each month, because he knew that by the time that year was over, it was going to be a lot less to pay back than if he would have bought it in one shot. So here they're using the system against itself. They also say just about anything that you can get interest-free, because what they do over there is some of the shops or bigger stores, they actually offer some interest-free items to get people to come in and buy. It's almost like when a supermarket tells you that you can come in and buy 5 cans of corn for $2, right? Well, they know that when you come in, they may lose a little bit of money on that $2, on that 5 cans of corn that you're buying for $2, but you'll probably buy something else, right? So that's what they do here. They say that whenever they see something that's on sale, that you can borrow it, that you can put it on credit for interest-free, that they buy it without even thinking about it. He says the idea that you can take advantage of inflation as it will dilute future fixed payments. It all comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, the value of the currency that you're using, or really the fiat currency, okay, that you're using. Let me go ahead and take about a minute or so, maybe a minute and a half, to explain to you all what the difference between money, between currency, and between fiat currency is, okay? Money is something like this. Money is something like silver or gold, or really anything that has tangible value that you can exchange with someone else for a good or a service. That's what money is. All right, throughout history, silver and gold is what's normally been used as money. Why? Because it's easy to carry, right? It's easily divisible, meaning that if you take this quarter and you cut it into 4 pieces, when you put those 4 pieces together, it's still worth the same amount that the quarter is worth, right? The silver quarter. All right, so this is considered 2 things. This is considered money and currency. Why? Because the money is in its value. The value is within itself, but you can also use it to trade with someone else, which makes it currency as well. Okay. Now, currency, ladies and gentlemen, let's say, for example, that this here was a silver certificate. Let's say that this here said that for this $1, you can get this 1 quarter, right? We all know that it's 4 quarters and not even, because this is fiat currency. But let's make believe that this is a silver certificate for 1 quarter. Now, this would be currency, because it means that you can take this silver certificate, you can take it to any bank and trade it in for the quarter, for the silver quarter. So that would make this currency. Currency, I guess you could say, is a coupon that you can use to go ahead and redeem your money. All right. Now let's get to fiat currency. Fiat currency is this: something that has no backing at all. That has absolutely no backing. You can't take this and trade it in for a silver quarter. All right, actually, a silver quarter is worth almost 5 times as much as this is right now. But you can't take this to a bank and trade it in for gold. You can't take it, trade it in for silver. This has no backing, with the only exception of your labor. The backing that the U.S. Federal Reserve note has really is your labor, ladies and gentlemen. Without your labor for the government to steal through inflation, this would be worth less. And the other backing that it has for people that are outside of our borders is the faith and confidence in the U.S. government to steal your labor in order to make sure that interest on this is paid. That is what a fiat currency is. It says here that with inflation at 1% per week, which is roughly what they're doing in Argentina, their inflation last year, I think, was 50.6%. So with inflation at roughly 1% a week, typically more than deposit interest rates, money sits in the bank and loses value. So think about that. If you had $1 in the bank and it was losing 1 penny, or yes, 1 penny worth of its value every single week, by the end of that year, that dollar would only be able to buy you 50 cents of what it could buy you in the beginning of that year. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is how inflation steals the value of your money and your wealth as well. And we're going to get to this part where it steals your labor, okay? Because they actually reference something here that matches perfectly with that. But in a high inflation economy, the greatest challenge might be matching income to rising prices. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? The greatest challenge might be matching your income to rising prices. That is where your labor is being stolen. Because if you are working the same number of hours, but now the pay that you're getting for working that same number of hours can only buy you half as much, what is it that is being stolen from you? Not only the value of the currency or the fiat currency that you're earning, but your labor, ladies and gentlemen, is what's being stolen from you. Your time, your freedom. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, inflation is such a crime, because they are literally stealing parts of your life. That is how you have to look at inflation. It is not only a theft of the purchasing power of your fiat currency, but it is a theft of your labor. And your labor is your time. And your time is your freedom. That is why everyone wants to retire early, ladies and gentlemen, because they want to be free. And in order to be free, you need to be in charge of your own time. And it's not very easy to be in charge of your own time when your government is stealing that very same time away from you. And then here they talk about our dollar stores, all right? So they have something that's like a dollar store in Argentina, and they talk about it. It says here, the idea behind todo times 2 pesos, which means everything for 2 pesos, kind of like everything for $1 at the dollar store, right? Is familiar to Americans. It was the Argentine equivalent of Five Below, or like our dollar store, right? Then consumer prices rose. Fewer products could be profitably sold for 2 pesos, and the business model collapsed. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because they can no longer sell anything at all for 2 pesos. And eventually that will be coming to a city near you. The dollar store is now the $1.25 store. And eventually it'll be the $2 store up to the point where they won't be able to sell anything because they cannot market the $100 store. There is so much in this article, ladies and gentlemen, that we can learn from. I would really highly recommend that you go to the Alaska Prepper channel, Alaska Prepper News channel, and at least check out this article. That way you can get the link to it. On that channel, I always leave the link to the news article that I read on a pinned comment. That way anyone that wants to actually revisit it can go and revisit it and look at it more in depth. In Argentina, prices do not exist anymore. That means Argentinians frequently pay more for less. Another way of how they steal your labor. When customers find a product at a price that they perceive as cheap, they hoard it. Everybody hikes prices a little bit. Listen to this, all right? I just did a video about this too the other day. Everyone hikes prices so that they can then put it on sale, so that it can look like it's on sale when really all they did was hike the prices up and then they lower it a week later so it can look like it's cheaper. And then he finishes off by saying that his life is now literally looking for deals and discounts all the time. But there are so many things that are similar to what they're saying in this article to what we see starting to happen here. So I am more convinced that we are headed down that path. But as I've stated several times, I feel we still have time. Things are getting more expensive, but eventually they will get to the point where people will be priced out of food. They will be priced out of those things that they need just to live a regular standard of living. Now, I don't think that we are seeing inflation anywhere close to what it's going to be. And the reason I say that is, I've shared this with you before on this channel in the past. The reason I say that is because the velocity of money is still very low. But once that velocity of money starts to pick up, the velocity of money, for those of you that may not know what it is how many times this dollar bill gets exchanged through the economy. So if I take this dollar and I use it to buy, I don't even know what I can buy with this anymore. Let's say I use it to buy a can of soda, right? And then the person that I bought that can of soda from uses the dollar that I bought from them to buy 2 cans of soda, right? Because they make a profit. And then the person, the company that they bought those 2 cans of soda from, then they go ahead and use that dollar that they got from the vendor to buy some aluminum, to buy some CO2, to buy some caramel coloring or whatever. Right there in that example, the velocity of this dollar in that example moved 3 times, was 3. Well, right now, there's not a lot of money moving through our economy, meaning the velocity of money is low. And the reason for that, believe it or not, is because there's actually a dollar shortage. There is so much debt in the world that there is actually a dollar shortage. Well, once we get into some type of a deflationary event, which is what I feel will happen first, we will have deflation, meaning that we will have no liquidity. The Fed will be forced to print like there's no tomorrow. If you think they're printing a lot now, it's nothing compared to what's coming, ladies and gentlemen. Once they are forced to print like there's no tomorrow, you're going to see the velocity of money go up. And then that's when our hyperinflationary event will commence at a higher rate than what we're seeing inflation at now. So that's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, that I feel that we still have some time. Although things are getting more expensive, we still have time to prepare.